Longlegs was amazing, and you've probably seen some of the absolutely insane marketing for it, from tracking star Micah Monroe's heart rate to having Mr. Downstairs leave weird letterbox comments, and even giving free tickets to those who could be victims within the confines of the movie. You are also not supposed to call the Longlegs phone number, so we're going to go ahead and call it. I don't know if it's still in service. Hey, is this Longlegs?
Happy birthday to you.
It's not my birthday, bro.
Happy birthday.
Hey, look. Shut up for a second. I'm making a YouTube video about you, and all right, man. Yeah, this guy's definitely insane. This is one of those films where they kind of leave you with a lot, and I do think a second viewing is in order to fully appreciate all the things that are going on. But I've compiled some thoughts and details that I noticed and I want to go over because I have a lot that I want to say about this movie. First off, horror queen Micah Monroe is stellar in this. In my opinion, this is her best role. I liked her in this a lot more than I did It Follows. Not to say she was bad in It Follows, but just she's very autistic coded in this movie. She plays a character named Lee Harker, who's an FBI agent, and she is tasked with tracking down the serial killer Longlegs, who is a Satanist and a doll maker, played by Nicolas Cage. This movie is steeped in Satan. From the imagery to the sound design, they have a lot of backward noise, hearkening back to old satanic panic stuff, of if you listen to rock music backwards, it's satanic messaging. If you play video games, they have satanic messaging in them.
Mewtwo. Every time that you see Mewtwo, he's in this pose. 3 fingers. It means Hail Satan.
Bunch of that stuff back in the olden days, and honestly, it's probably still around in like Facebook or something, you know? So yeah, like I said, Longlegs is a Satanist, and Lee's mother, played by Alicia Witt, is an ultra-religious, probably Christian, though they never explicitly say, but she is constantly asking Lee to do her prayers over the phone. Now, remember these phone calls, they're pretty important. There's a few of them early on in the movie, and we don't actually see her mom for a while, and these phone calls are very, very awkward. Lee's mom is always asking if this is actually Lee when she answers, to which Lee responds annoyed, "Yes, I'm your only kid." So early on in the film, Lee is sent to hunt for Longlegs with her partner, and she is very, very easily able to guess which house they need to look in, to which the FBI is like, hey, you probably have psychic powers. So they test her by having her give a one-word response to images, kind of like they do in those therapy scenes in movies. Now, an important thing to note is that when she's shown a triangle, she responds, "Father." Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind, okay? Jeez. Anyways, the FBI deems her to be a psychic and puts her higher up in the priority of who gets to pursue this case, and she partners up with Agent Carter, played by Blair Underwood. After a long night of research, Agent Carter wants Lee to meet his family, his wife, and his daughter, to which Lee objects, but then Carter pushes her and basically forces her to do it. And that scene is also really awkward. She clearly does not want to be interacting with this guy's family, but at the end of it, the daughter invites her to her birthday, to which she replies that she'll be there. Now, throughout the rest of the movie, it kind of plays almost like a straight crime thriller a la Zodiac, but at the halfway point, it just delves further and further into supernatural stuff and kind of completely goes away from that angle. Longlegs is caught 70-80% into the movie and just straight up ends himself in front of Lee and hints that he has an accomplice, to which Lee cannot get an answer out of him. Who is your accomplice? Now, the first scene in this movie is amazing and chilling. We get introduced to Longlegs as he drives up to a white house in the snow, and Lee as a child walks out, and Longlegs approaches her, happily exclaiming that she's approaching her birthday, and tells her that he put his long legs on today. The frame is smaller in this scene, and then it extends as the opening credits are rolling, which really just activated like my monkey brain, where you're in a movie theater and suddenly you got to sit forward because you're like, oh shit, they're not playing around, Such an amazing scene. And it's going to be important later. We don't see everything. We're going to get more from it later in the movie, which I'll tell you about right now. We basically learn over time that Lee's mother came out and confronted him like, hey, why are you talking to my daughter? And Longlegs ends up trying to kill both of them, to which Lee's mother begs and begs that Longlegs spare them. So Longlegs makes a deal with them. If he can use their house and have her mother be the accomplice to what he's doing, then he will spare them. So you come to learn that the way Longlegs is killing people is not actually direct. He's getting dolls that look like the daughters into their houses, and this is making the dads go crazy and kill the rest of the family. So that's weird. How is he doing that? Well, they basically all but outright say that Satan is controlling people through these dolls. One interesting detail, there's actually a term called cuckooing, where you insert yourself into a family and take them out from the inside. And there's another scene in the movie where Longlegs is like, cuckoo, cuckoo. But that's basically what him and the devil are doing to people with these dolls. They're straight up cuckooing families. Later in the film, when the FBI catches Longlegs, in the interrogation tape, he keeps asking to see Lee. Lee asks where he is, to which she was replied to with, he is right below your feet. Now, this is really a cool detail because actually he was right below her feet her entire life, making dolls and planning these murders in their basement, which is, that was a pretty gross twist. After Longlegs ends himself, she goes to see her mom and finds out that her mom is the accomplice, and her mom shoots a doll made of her, and she passes out and then wakes up in Longlegs' lair. She runs upstairs and picks up the phone, to which she hears a demonic voice saying, "You're late for Ruby's birthday." Now, Ruby is Carter's daughter, and I actually think this is Satan. Earlier in the movie, like I said, there are multiple times where Lee's mom is like, is this actually Lee? And so I think that she's been talking to Satan on the phone, and when Lee calls her, she needs to confirm that it's Lee so she knows it's not Satan calling her. Now, Satan has a pretty grisly voice, so I don't think it would be that hard to differentiate. But, I guess it can change his voice. Is Satan an it or a he? I don't know. I guess Satan can change his voice, so that's something. Anyways, Lee rushes to his birthday, but it is too late. Her mom is already in the house with a doll that looks like Ruby, and Carter and his wife are acting strange. Lee is able to stop the killing of the daughter, but is not able to save the wife and Carter. But her mom stands up to try and finish the job, and Lee also kills her. Now, another interesting detail that is extremely easy to miss is that when her mom stands up to try and finish the murder of the child, her face starts to morph into something. And then Lee's like, "Mom, no." And her mom replies, "Don't call me that." And so I actually think this was Satan manifesting into her mom. And now, here's the question that we could be left with after all this, okay? The end of the movie, Lee takes Ruby and leaves the house, and you're like, okay, so is Lee going to continue in doing Satan's bidding just like Longlegs and her mom was before? But I actually have a few reasons to believe that that is not the case, so let's get into that. Now, it's especially worth noting that every single victim family, except for Lee and her mother, are a two-parent mother-father household that have at least one daughter. My theory is that Longlegs is actually Lee's father, or at least a representative of it, though I'm not 100% sure because also in the beginning of the movie, when he says, "I put my Longlegs on," I think that could actually be taken literally and not as something that a psychopath is just saying and being weird about. Because in the Bible, the devil actually transplants himself into a serpent to do his bidding. So maybe Longlegs was a snake, literally, and got given legs by the devil. I don't know, that's just something I noticed and thought of. But after all, I mean, Longlegs is only half of the term for the thing we commonly know as a daddy Longlegs. But no. So I don't know. I think he might just be like a representative of a father figure, because if he was literally a snake before becoming Longlegs, then he couldn't also have literally been her father, unless her mother's into some freaky ass shit. I don't fucking know. No, but for real, it's Satan doing all these things. Like I said, Longlegs never directly kills his victims, and the mom also kind of falls into this satanic thing. Now, the question that you could be left with after watching the end of the movie is Lee going to continue doing Satan's biddings, or like Longlegs and her mother before her, or has she broken this generational curse? This is definitely a movie that has a lot of stuff about like parenting and generational trauma, and meta-contextually, the director, Oz Perkins, is the son of Anthony Perkins, who was an actor who died of AIDS in 1992 after a lifetime of living in the closet, and then his mom died 9 years later in the 9/11 attacks. Oz Perkins has said that when writing Longlegs, he liked the idea that a mother could lie out of love. So that's definitely like ringing true through the movie. Like I said, the big twist is that Lee's mother is one of the accomplices. So that is all over the movie, though I do think it's a bit reductive seeing people say the movie is only about generational trauma, because I do think this movie has a lot more than that going on. But it's definitely part of it. Now, so back to that question. Is Lee going to continue helping Satan cuckoo people? Well, I actually think the answer is no. And my reasoning for that is there is a lot of references to the color white in this movie, and white being kind of a representation of purity, which I also think is something from the Bible. I don't know. I've never read the Bible. But like in the very beginning of the movie, when Longlegs meets Lee, he's so happy about the fact that her house is white, almost like he wants to go into this pure household and stain that white with his demonic intent. When Longlegs ends himself in front of Lee, his blood splatters on her face and her chest, but it doesn't actually get on her white shirt. And so I took that as the movie trying to tell us that because her white shirt was not touched by Longlegs' red devilish blood, that she retained her purity. Another thing is that Lee is not religious. She doesn't really have a mind for religion. Her mom always, like I said, asked her to do her prayers, but Lee later tells her that she never did them and they actually used to scare her. So if you have these three characters that are kind of in this satanic triangle, right? One of them is extremely Christian and religious. One of them is extremely religious, but for Satan. One of them is not religious. I don't know. I think that's worth keeping in mind. The other thing, too, is Longlegs, every single one of like Longlegs and Satan's victims were dead in the house. They never like got out of the house and then died. So if Lee was going to continue in Satan's mission, by the movie's rules, she would have just killed Ruby right there in the house. She wouldn't have brought her out. She literally closes the door on like a reflection of Satan as she leaves, I think literally and figuratively leaving the devil at home. So that's just my reading of it. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is fact. These are just like what I've kind of figured because of the details I've seen. Though I do think there are certain criticisms I've seen that don't really make sense. The first one for me is that people are saying that they don't explain her psychic powers enough. And like, that's because she doesn't have psychic powers. Like, they're visions from Satan. He's pushing her forward in this case. He wants her to figure out about this stuff. When she gets her visions, she always looks over her left shoulder, kind of like, when you have a devil on your shoulder. And she's constantly seeing like snakes before she actually sees what she needs to see. And like I said, earlier with like putting the Longlegs thing on and Satan put himself through the devil and like Satan's called a snake in the Bible all the times. It seems fairly obvious to me that she just doesn't have psychic powers. The devil is just showing her these visions to push her forward in what she's doing, but she hasn't actually like gained an ability or something. So that's your explanation if you were confused about that, I guess. And then the other one is like, I've seen a lot of people say that this movie is like functionally no different from Silence of the Lambs, which like, what? I feel like the only way that you could think that is if you've only seen a trailer for Silence of the Lambs. Like, barring the fact that the main character is a woman FBI agent and there is a serial killer in the movie, the similarities kind of end there. These are not similar movies. They have different things to say and they are structured very differently. So, I don't know. Weird criticism. I don't think it's very apt. Interesting movie. It's not perfect. And it wasn't like it's gonna melt your teeth and stain your soul with how freaky it is, because like that's kind of what a lot of the marketing was doing. This was definitely another movie similar to like It Comes at Night, where the marketing really missed the mark with like what this was, because really it is like a crime thriller that has more supernatural and horror elements than, you know, something like Zodiac, like I already said. But it's not a horror movie. It's a thriller. It's a suspense, and it needed to be marketed like that. But that's the thing. Like, the marketing made me excited to see this movie. And I know a lot of people probably will leave this movie feeling unsatisfied and unfulfilled, because if you're expecting like gruesome horror, you're not getting that really. And I actually did have that problem with It Comes at Night. I didn't think that It Comes at Night was interesting enough to like warrant that kind of marketing. And I know a lot of people really liked that movie too, but honestly, I was not the biggest fan. But, you know, nonetheless, I get it if you walked out of this movie kind of upset. But, you know, for me, this movie really made me think. I wanted to like, I don't know. It was an entertaining movie for me. I like movies that make me think. It had me on the edge of my seat. I think the thriller stuff really worked. I have seen some people saying that like the investigation scenes didn't really work for them. But I don't know. It worked for me. I thought it was entertaining. So, you know, what do you think? Let me know in the comments. You know, be civil. If you disagree with my theories, that's fine. You know, don't be an asshole. Other than that, though, have a great day or night. And watch this video.